What if your mind was a sovereign nation, and you were its vigilant, unbreachable border guard? In a world where emotional tactics and psychological games are common, what if you could learn to recognize and calmly refuse entry to any form of manipulation, safeguarding your inner peace as your most precious territory? This is the art of Stoic self-possession, and today you will learn to master it. How real men reject emotional manipulation tactics. Stoicism, compiled and published by Stoic Power. Lesson 1. Recognize emotional manipulation triggers. Imagine a skilled and experienced physician examining a patient who feels vaguely unwell. A novice might just see a collection of confusing complaints. But the master physician has trained for years to recognize the subtle, early symptoms of a disease before it takes hold. He can spot the faint rash, hear the slight irregularity in the heartbeat, and connect the seemingly unrelated symptoms to identify the underlying illness, allowing for early and effective treatment. The inner conflict for many of us is that we are the novice in the face of emotional manipulation. We often find ourselves in conversations or relationships where we feel a sense of unease, confusion, or a strange sense of obligation, but we cannot pinpoint exactly why. The painful problem is that because we don't recognize the subtle symptoms of emotional manipulation, we often don't realize what is happening until after we have already been compromised. After we have agreed to something we didn't want to do, apologized for something that wasn't our fault, or been drawn into an exhausting emotional drama. We are like the patient who ignores the early symptoms until the disease has become a full-blown crisis. This leaves us feeling foolish, resentful, and powerless, as if we are constantly being outmaneuvered in a game we don't even understand we are playing. The transformative solution is to become the master physician of your own interpersonal dynamics. It is the practice of studying and learning to recognize the common symptoms or triggers of manipulation, so you can identify them early and protect your peace before it is ever truly threatened. The core idea is that awareness is the first and most critical line of defense. You cannot defend your fortress against an enemy you do not see coming. The Stoics placed immense value on the practice of prosoph, or vigilant attention, not just to our own thoughts, but to the nature of the world around us. In this context, it means paying close attention to the specific tactics people use to provoke an emotional response in order to control our decisions. Some common symptoms include guilt tripping. If you really cared about me, you would do this. Playing the victim to elicit sympathy and obligation, using veiled threats about the relationship's future, giving excessive flattery to lower your defenses, love bombing, or constantly moving the goalposts so you always feel like you are falling short. The benefit of learning to recognize these triggers is that it immediately changes your perspective. You move from being an emotional participant in the drama to being a calm, objective observer of a tactic being deployed. The tactic loses its invisible power over you the moment you can see it and name it for what it is. This is incredibly empowering and is the first step toward reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. The actionable step to cultivate this skill is to start keeping interaction field notes. After you have a conversation that leaves you feeling confused, drained, or guilty, take 5 minutes with a journal. Don't focus on your feelings initially. Instead, try to be a neutral reporter and write down the specific phrases or communication patterns that were used. Did the person use if-then statements to imply a threat? Did they bring up past favors to make you feel indebted? Did they use absolute language like you always or you never? Don't judge the other person or yourself. Your only job is to observe and label the tactics, like a physician noting symptoms. By doing this consistently, you will develop a powerful new level of awareness. You will begin to spot these patterns in real time, not just in hindsight. The fog of confusion that manipulation thrives in will begin to clear, replaced by the sharp light of your own perception. I urge you to begin this practice of observation this week. Become a student of human dynamics, not to become cynical, but to become wise and unshakable. Recognizing the tactics is the first step, but a nation needs more than just watchtowers. It needs strong, clearly defined borders. Our next lesson is on building Stoic inner boundaries. Before we continue, please subscribe to the Stoic Power channel to continue your training in becoming the calm guardian of your own mind. Lesson 2. Build Stoic inner boundaries. Picture a great ancient fortress. Its power and security come not just from its vigilant guards, but from its high, strong, and clearly defined walls. These walls are non-negotiable. They mark the line between the sovereign territory within and the wild, unpredictable world outside. The walls do not need to be aggressive or loud. They simply need to be solid, clear, and consistently maintained. They say, "This far and no further." A man's inner boundaries, based on his core values, are the walls of his personal fortress. The inner conflict we face is that many of us have weak, poorly defined, or non-existent walls. We fear that building walls is a hostile act, that it will push people away, and so we leave our inner territory completely exposed. The painful problem with having no boundaries is that we are constantly invaded. We are susceptible to having our lines pushed, our values compromised, and our energy drained by the demands and emotional states of others. We concede things we know we shouldn't because we haven't clearly defined for ourselves where we stand. We say yes to requests that violate our peace, and then we build a deep and toxic resentment toward the very person we were trying to please. This leads to a life of inner conflict, passive aggression, and a profound loss of self-respect. We feel weak and powerless because we are allowing others to dictate the rules of engagement within our own sovereign territory. The transformative solution is to understand that building clear, strong internal boundaries is not a hostile act of selfishness. It is a fundamental act of self-respect and the prerequisite for any healthy relationship. It is the conscious and deliberate construction of the walls that will protect your inner peace. The core Stoic idea is that your most important duty is to be the guardian of your own mind, your own ruling faculty. This means you must define what is and is not acceptable within your own domain. Your core values, your commitment to honesty, reason, peace, or purpose determine where your property lines are. A boundary is simply the calm and rational defense of that line. The Stoics believed in justice, and justice begins with respecting yourself enough to protect your own character from compromise. The benefit of this is that it makes you a man of substance and integrity. You become predictable in your principles, which makes others feel safe and secure around you, even if they don't like a specific boundary you set. It eliminates the poison of resentment because you are no longer violating your own principles to please others. It is the foundation of genuine self-esteem. The actionable step is to create your boundary blueprint. This is a private document for your eyes only. In a journal, write down 3 to 5 clear "I will not" statements based on your deepest values. These are not rules for others, they are rules for yourself. For example, I will not participate in gossip or slander. I will not make decisions out of guilt or fear. I will not be responsible for another capable adult's emotional state. I will not allow my time to be controlled by the manufactured urgency of others. I will not engage in conversations that are built on yelling or personal attacks. This blueprint is the architectural plan for your fortress walls. By writing it down, you make your boundaries conscious and clear. Review this blueprint weekly. This practice will give you the clarity and strength to know exactly where your lines are, making it far easier to defend them calmly and confidently when they are tested. I urge you to draft your boundary blueprint this week. Define your sovereign territory. One of the most common attacks on our boundaries comes in the form of guilt and shame. How do we identify and disarm these potent manipulative traps? Our next lesson will give you the tools. If you are ready to build your inner fortress, please like this video. Lesson 3. Identify guilt and shame traps. Imagine you are a traveler walking through a dense, unfamiliar jungle. A skilled hunter has set a trap for you. It is not a crude pitfall, but a subtle, cleverly disguised snare, perfectly placed on the path and baited with something you desire. The snare is designed to use your own momentum and your own instincts against you, to entangle you before you even realize you are caught. Guilt and shame, when used as manipulative tactics, are precisely like this hunter's snare. The inner conflict we face is that our own conscience, our desire to be a good and caring person, is used as the bait. The painful problem is that guilt and shame are such powerful and effective manipulative tools because they prey on our deepest values. The manipulator sets a trap by implying that if we do not comply with their wishes, we are being selfish, uncaring, unloving, or a bad person. The trap might sound like, "If you really loved me, you wouldn't hesitate to do this." Or, "After all I've done for you, you can't do this one small thing for me." Or the more subtle act of sighing and playing the martyr when you say no. Because we want to see ourselves as loving and good, we feel a pang of guilt, and we walk right into the snare, agreeing to something that violates our own boundaries or well-being. We become trapped not by their power, but by our own desire to be a good person being turned against us. The transformative solution is to become the wise traveler who has studied the hunter's methods. It is to learn to see the guilt trap for the clever mechanism that it is, allowing you to admire its construction without ever stepping into its loop. This requires you to rationally dissect the guilt and shame being presented to you and to see it with objective clarity. The core Stoic idea here is the critical difference between healthy guilt and manipulative guilt. Healthy guilt, which the Stoics would see as a signal from your own reason, is the pain you feel when you have actually violated one of your own deeply held values. It is a useful signal to correct your course. Manipulative guilt, however, is the feeling that arises when someone is trying to make you feel responsible for their feelings, their happiness, or their unreasonable expectations. The Stoic warrior knows that he is responsible for his own actions and intentions, but he is never responsible for the emotional reactions of another adult. The benefit of mastering this distinction is that you become immune to one of the most common and powerful forms of manipulation. You can maintain your compassion and kindness without becoming a puppet to another person's emotional demands. You preserve your self-respect and your inner peace because your actions are guided by your own values, not by manufactured guilt. The actionable step is to practice the guilt trap analysis. The next time you feel that familiar pang of guilt or shame in an interaction, pause. Take a moment to ask yourself these two critical questions. 1. Have I actually violated one of my own core values as defined in my boundary blueprint? Am I acting without integrity? 2. Or am I being asked to take responsibility for something that is outside my control, such as another person's emotional state, their happiness, or their poor planning? Be ruthlessly honest in your assessment. This analysis is the act of checking the path for snares. If the answer to the first question is yes, then healthy guilt is appropriate, and a sincere apology or corrective action is required. But if the answer to the second question is yes, you have identified a manipulative trap. Your response should then be a calm refusal to step in it, perhaps by saying, "I understand that you are disappointed, but my decision stands," thereby acknowledging their feeling without accepting responsibility for it. I challenge you this week to become a master trap spotter. Analyze every pang of guilt. See it for what it is. To do this effectively, especially when under pressure, requires a calm and composed mind. How do we maintain that composure? Our next lesson is on this very topic. Please comment below and share your thoughts on the difference between healthy and manipulative guilt. Lesson 4. Maintain composure under pressure. Imagine again the deep, dark ocean. A violent storm rages on the surface, with chaotic winds and massive waves. This storm represents an intense, emotionally charged situation. A heated argument, a high-pressure negotiation, a manipulative attack. Now imagine two submarines in this storm. The first submarine has a weak hull and leaky seals. As the storm rages, the chaotic water from the outside forces its way in, and the submarine is tossed about, its internal environment becoming as chaotic and turbulent as the sea outside. The second submarine is a masterpiece of engineering. Its hull is strong, its seals are perfect. It can move through the exact same storm, observing the chaos outside its viewports, but its internal environment remains perfectly calm, quiet, and pressurized. It is in the storm, but it is not of the storm. The inner conflict for us is that we are often the leaky submarine. The painful problem is that emotional manipulation is specifically designed to provoke a reaction. The manipulator wants to create an emotional storm outside of you in the hope that it will breach your defenses and create a storm inside of you. When we lose our composure, when we get angry, defensive, or flustered, we have lost the battle. In that reactive state, our ability to think rationally collapses, and we become easy to control. We have let their storm become our storm. We have, in effect, handed them the controls to our own inner state. The transformative solution is to become the second submarine. It is the art of building and maintaining a state of inner calm, or apatheia as the Stoics called it, which is not apathy, but a state of tranquility that is invulnerable to external chaos. It is the conscious practice of maintaining your composure as your most powerful strategic defense. The core Stoic idea is that your inner state, your ruling faculty, is a fortress that no one can enter without your permission. The manipulator wants you to join them in the emotional storm because that is where they have the advantage. Your greatest power, your most effective defense, is to politely refuse the invitation and to remain in your own calm, rational center. Your composure itself becomes a shield that their emotional attacks cannot penetrate. The benefit of this is that it completely disarms the manipulator. They are trying to provoke a reaction, and when you calmly refuse to provide one, their tactic has nowhere to go. It fizzles out. You maintain your clarity, your power, and your dignity. You become an impossible person to manipulate because you cannot be easily emotionally triggered. The actionable step to cultivate this is the anchor breath technique. This is a simple, physiological tool to use in the exact moment you feel yourself coming under emotional pressure. When you feel the heat rising, your heart rate increasing, and your composure starting to slip, you must immediately and subtly shift your entire focus to the physical sensation of one single slow breath. Anchor all of your awareness on the feeling of the cool air entering your nostrils, filling your lungs, and then the feeling of the warm air leaving your body. Do this for one full cycle, in and out. This act, which no one else even needs to notice, does two things. It acts as a powerful circuit breaker on your body's stress response, and it buys your rational mind a precious few seconds to come back online. This is your emergency dive, your descent from the stormy surface to the calm depths. I urge you to practice this anchor breath during moments of low-level stress, when you're in traffic, when you're feeling impatient, so that it becomes an automatic reflex. When the real pressure is on, you will know exactly what to do to maintain your calm. Your composure is your shield, but a shield is a defense. How do we go on the offense with our reason? Our next lesson is on the art of responding with rational detachment. To support our channel, please consider sharing this video with someone who you think is a calm and composed presence. Lesson 5. Respond with rational detachment. Imagine a brilliant scientist observing a volatile chemical reaction in a beaker. The chemicals might fizz violently, change color dramatically, release smoke, or produce intense heat. The reaction itself is chaotic and unpredictable. The scientist, however, does not become the chemical reaction. He does not allow himself to get caught up in the fizzing and the heat. He stands back at a safe, objective distance. He observes the reaction with a cool, detached curiosity. He takes notes, he analyzes the data, and he seeks to understand the principles governing the chaos. His detachment is the source of his insight and his power. The inner conflict we face when dealing with an emotional or manipulative person is that we tend to get drawn into the beaker with them. We become part of the volatile chemical reaction. The painful problem is that we take the manipulator's emotional drama personally. We get entangled in the substance of their arguments, their accusations, and their emotional displays. We argue the facts of their distorted reality. We defend ourselves against their unfair characterizations, and we get sucked into the vortex of their emotional storm. This is a losing strategy because the manipulator is often not interested in facts or reason. They are interested in getting an emotional reaction and controlling the dynamic. By engaging with them on their emotional terms, we are playing their game, on their field, by their rules. This leaves us feeling drained, confused, and frustrated, having achieved nothing. The transformative solution is to adopt the mindset of the curious scientist. It is the art of learning to respond not to the emotional content of the manipulator's words, but to the underlying tactic, and to do so with a calm, rational detachment. The core Stoic idea here is to depersonalize the interaction. The Stoic warrior trains himself to see manipulative words not as a personal attack on him, but as a strategy being deployed by the other person, likely due to their own pain, fear, or insecurity. This shift from "this is an attack on me" to "this is an interesting, albeit unfortunate tactic they are choosing to use" creates immense psychological distance and protects your inner peace. The benefit is that you stop being a participant in the drama and you become an observer of the dynamic. This allows you to maintain your clarity and choose a response that is strategic and effective, rather than emotional and reactive. You refuse to get into the beaker, so you cannot get burned by the reaction. The actionable step is to practice what we can call the tactic labeling response. Instead of arguing about the emotional content of what the manipulator is saying, you calmly and neutrally label the dynamic or the tactic itself. This must be done without accusation or anger. It is a simple observation. For example, if someone is trying to guilt trip you, instead of arguing, you might say, "I feel as though you are trying to make me feel guilty for my decision. I am not willing to make a choice based on that feeling." If they are attacking your character, instead of addressing the issue, you could say, "It seems like we've strayed from the original topic and are now discussing my character. I'd like to stay focused on the issue at hand." Or more simply, "When you raise your voice, it is not possible for me to have a productive conversation. We can talk about this later when you are feeling calmer." These phrases are powerful because they reframe the entire interaction. They demonstrate that you see the game being played and you are politely refusing to play. I challenge you to formulate one or two of these detached responses that feel authentic to you and practice saying them. Rational detachment requires a strong connection to our own principles. How do we keep our values top of mind so they can guide us in these difficult moments? Our next lesson is on the daily reaffirmation of personal values. Please subscribe to Stoic Power to continue learning these powerful communication strategies. Lesson 6. Reaffirm personal values daily. Imagine a master mountaineer preparing for a difficult and dangerous climb at dawn. Before he sets out, as the first light touches the peaks, he performs a crucial ritual. He takes out his compass, holds it flat, and watches as the needle settles, pointing steadfastly to true north. He does this every single day, not because he has forgotten which way north is, but to consciously and deliberately orient himself before he takes his first step. This ritual aligns his internal map with the external world and reminds him of his ultimate direction and purpose. A man's core values are his internal compass. The inner conflict we face is that we often attempt to navigate the difficult, treacherous terrain of our daily lives without ever consulting our compass. The painful problem is that if our values are not consciously and actively at the top of our mind, we are far more likely to compromise them, especially when we are under pressure. Emotional manipulation, in particular, works best on those who are disconnected from their own true north. If you are not clear on what you stand for, it is easy for someone else to pull you off your path and onto theirs. You become easily swayed by guilt, by the desire for approval, or by fear, because you have no strong internal reference point to hold on to. This leads to decisions you later regret and a slow erosion of your own character and self-respect. You feel lost and adrift because you have lost touch with your own guiding principles. The transformative solution is the simple but profound daily practice of consciously reconnecting with and reaffirming your core values, ensuring that your compass is always in hand before you begin the day's climb. The core Stoic idea is that a good life is a life lived in accordance with virtue. But to live in accordance with virtue, you must be crystal clear on what your virtues are. This is not a one-time exercise, but a daily practice of remembrance and recommitment. Your values are your shield against the chaos of the world. Daily reinforcement makes that shield strong, polished, and ready for use. The benefit of this is that it builds a powerful, deeply rooted sense of self. You become a man who knows what he stands for. This inner clarity makes you far less susceptible to external influence and manipulation. Your decisions become more consistent and coherent because they are all aligned with the same true north. This creates a powerful sense of integrity and peace. The actionable step is to create a values affirmation ritual. First, if you haven't already, take the time to define your 3 to 5 core personal values, e.g., integrity, courage, discipline, peace, justice. Write them on a card or a note you can easily access. Then, every single morning, as part of your routine, take just 30 seconds to read them. Say to yourself, either silently or out loud, "Today, I will act in alignment with these principles. This is my compass. This is who I am committed to being." This simple ritual is like the mountaineer checking his compass. It orients your mind and sets a clear, virtuous intention for the day. It primes you to notice when you are being pulled off course and gives you the strength to correct it. I urge you to begin this 30-second ritual tomorrow morning. Let your values be the first thing you consult each day. This daily practice reinforces our character. But how do we bring all these lessons together in the final moment of truth, when we must actively reject a manipulative tactic? Our final lesson is on this very art. If you found this lesson valuable, please comment below and share one core value that serves as your true north. Lesson 7. Reject tactics, reinforce self-respect. Imagine the sovereign ruler of a peaceful and prosperous nation. An emissary from a belligerent neighboring king arrives at his court and begins to make unreasonable demands, using a mixture of veiled threats, flattery, and attempts to inspire guilt. The weak ruler, fearing conflict, might give in to these demands, sacrificing a piece of his nation's sovereignty for a moment of false peace. The foolishly aggressive ruler might declare war, plunging his people into unnecessary conflict. But the wise, Stoic ruler does neither. He listens calmly, he maintains his composure, and then he politely but firmly rejects the emissary's manipulative demands. He does not start a war, but he does not surrender an inch of his territory. In this calm refusal, he reinforces his nation's sovereignty and earns the deep respect of both his people and his enemies. The final inner conflict we face is in this moment of truth. We may have recognized the tactic, built our boundaries, and maintained our composure, but we still struggle with the final, clean act of rejection. The painful problem is that we often fear that rejecting a manipulative tactic will lead to a catastrophic conflict or the end of a relationship. This fear can cause us to falter at the last moment. We might try a weak, half-hearted refusal that only invites more pressure. Or we might ghost the situation, avoiding the necessary conversation altogether. This leaves the dynamic unresolved and reinforces our own sense of powerlessness. We know what we should do, but we lack the final courage and skill to do it cleanly, leaving us feeling weak and disappointed in ourselves. The transformative solution is the synthesis of all the previous lessons into a final, calm, and powerful act of self-respecting refusal. It is the art of becoming the sovereign ruler of your own mind. The core idea is that the ultimate and most effective rejection of manipulation is not a dramatic counterattack, but a calm, firm, and graceful disengagement. It is the quiet, powerful refusal to play the game. You are not trying to defeat the other person. You are simply choosing to protect your own peace and integrity. This final act is the culmination of all your training. Your awareness recognizes the tactic, your inner boundaries give you a clear position, your composure keeps you calm, your detachment prevents you from taking it personally, and your values guide your final response. The benefit is that you handle difficult situations with a clean, dignified strength that preserves your self-respect, and often, paradoxically, earns you more respect from others in the long run. You teach people that manipulation simply does not work on you. The actionable step is to practice and memorize a few simple, firm, broad, and repeatable refusal phrases. Having these ready makes it much easier to use them under pressure. Examples include, I am not willing to make a decision based on guilt. I will not continue this conversation while you are yelling at me. We can talk later when we can both be respectful. I understand your position, but my answer is no. This is not open for negotiation. The key is the delivery. Calm, firm, and without anger or apology. Then if the person continues to push, your final action is to calmly remove yourself from the conversation or the situation. You end the engagement. This is the ultimate reinforcement of your boundary and your self-respect. I encourage you to choose one of these phrases and practice saying it, even just to yourself in the mirror, so it feels natural. This is how you reject the tactic while reinforcing your self-respect, becoming the sovereign ruler of your own life. We have journeyed through the 7 great disciplines of the Stoic warrior, learning to build the inner fortress that allows us to reject emotional manipulation and protect our peace. From recognizing the first signs of a tactic to the final calm act of refusal, this path teaches us that our greatest defense is a well-ordered, principled, and self-respecting mind. Thank you for taking this time to learn how to guard your own sovereignty. If this video has served you on your journey, please like this video, comment with your greatest insight, and subscribe to the Stoic Power channel for more content on building an unconquerable mind and a life of integrity.